So a thoroughly unpleasant budget, not just for people like me who enjoy alcohol and cigarettes, although it will be bad for us, but particularly for the public sector, which seems now to be the sort of whipping boy of the economy, in a way that the bankers were at first. Now we're blaming the public sector for being having too much money, for being paid too much, for having too big pensions, for being bloated, and that this is the drain on the economy and that this is what has got to be cut. Well, shortly I'm going to be talking to the boss of a thriving private company, who you might expect would be all in favour of this pruning and a bit more energy devoted to the private sector. But there's a twist, because the boss of this company, Rob Killick, is a former commie, a member of the International Marxist Group he was, and some of that Marxism is still kicking around. So it'll be interesting to see what his take on the budget is, and whether it's right that we should be slashing back the public sector. No, I don't, actually. I think that this is a view that's been taken by the Tories. It's a point of view rather than it's not unavoidable in the way that Osborne has tried to sell it to us. But you probably voted for them, didn't you? Sadly, yes. Why did you do that? A good old-fashioned Marxist. But it was mainly because I thought the New Labour was done for, and that was really nothing much after that. I couldn't vote for the Liberals. But I don't think that private capital, and this is really why I came into, why I was a lefty, basically, because I never believed that capitalism could provide what people need. Modern capitalist states have never been able to provide through the market education, health services, even unemployment benefit. National insurance has never covered that. There's all kinds of areas of life where the state has to intervene. And I think big infrastructure projects are the same. You know, big businesses, however big they are, very loath to take on the risk of investing in projects which take 20, 25 years sometimes to really come through. The state has to play a role in that. Of course, the one group of people who've never really got the blame for the appalling financial mess which we found ourselves in is you and me, the ordinary members of the public. And of course we have a case to answer as well, because a lot of this is fueled by debt. Spending, getting yourselves into debt, taking out mortgages you couldn't afford, but also consumerism, just rampant consumerism. Here we are at the sort of mecca of British consumerism, which is the unmitigated misery and hell of Oxford Street. You know the recession we had? Who did you blame for that?
Largely Gordon Brown.
Largely Gordon Brown. Not
Chancellor and Prime Minister.
Not the bankers.
Not so much the bankers. Why they bailed the banks out, I don't know.
Right.
They should have let them suffer.
I think making cuts in general is the kind of easiest way to do things. I think they could have thought a bit harder about it and maybe found better means to get us out of the recession and sort out the finances of the country.
As a teenager, 18, 19, I got so many letters about credit cards and deals that I could get on credit cards when I was 18, 19 years old. Once after the recession, when I had a job, and well, not after, but kind of during the recession, when I had a job and I wanted a credit card to go on holiday with, I couldn't get one. And I think that's just an example of, before people were being thrown credit cards, they were being, people getting mortgages way beyond their means and then getting themselves into difficult financial situations. So I do think that had a part to play. Obviously the banks are responsible for selling those deals, aren't they? What
are you advising the government to do then?
I would like to see them give much more strategic lead in terms of the infrastructure. I think that there's the risk aversion which has stopped people, rich people, not wage slaves like you and me, but people with serious money, from investing in productive industries, is about avoiding risk. I mean, that's really what was at the heart of the recession in the last 2 years.
Because people thought that those bonds and those mortgages were less risky than
investing in proper businesses. And I think the government needs to, it's not just a government problem, but the government needs to show that they have a vision for what Britain's going to be like in 10, 20 years' time by investing in things like nuclear power station programs and things which we really need if we're going to stay as a competitive country.
Do you think that the public sector needs to be cut back, that there's too much?
Well, the Tories were always going to cut the public sector right back, weren't they? I mean, both of my parents are teachers, and that's the first thing they said when the coalition government was formed. They said, well, the public sector cuts are going to be deep. That's what they've always done. And I think, sometimes when you get a council that has a special team which is dedicated to, the upkeep of a little park, or you do have some crazy initiatives. So clearly there's ways that we can save money. But
Lesbian outreach workers.
Yeah, well, nothing against lesbian outreach workers, but I've heard of some crazy schemes.
Well, there you are. That old anger about the bankers seems to have abated. It seems not to be there anymore, and I think the government is taking some advantage of that, and also a disillusionment with Gordon Brown. But I think we'll have to wait to see for those spending cuts to really bite in the public sector before people begin to question why they were made in the first place. And I think Rob Killick has a very, very good point. But actually, the two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can have a strong public sector so long as you are making the right investments in the private sector. But then what do I know?